So talking about growth mindset, our intention behind talking about this week has been around, especially the timing of it. We've been in this season now for a little bit of time. The very beginning, it kind of felt like triage, like, okay, we have to about face, figure out how to work differently, or keep doing work the same, but adjust to growth not happening or losing clients. I mean, there was all this like triage. Do we have to lay off people? Don't we have to lay off people? Do we need to reduce pay? I mean, there's all that helter-skelter. And then I think, we needed some really practical tools on how do we need to understand money right now? What do we need to do with money? What do we do with our people? How do we lead during this time? What are the very practical things going on within our government that have to do with employees and people? I mean, all those things. It's like I almost think about like the Maslow's hierarchy of needs. It's like we have these basic needs. We need to understand, what are we doing with money during this time? What are we doing with people during this time? How are we navigating the very practical impacts of government on our day-to-day businesses? And then we kind of started talking about, we need to start thinking about some deeper things too. And how do we care for ourselves during this time? And how do we compromise and negotiate with others during this time? It's like, I feel like the progression's been pretty awesome. And now we're kind of transitioning to talking about the future. How do we use this hindsight of what we've learned over the last month and a half, 2 months, that's going to propel us into the future? And I think, taking a step back and now, okay, we're triaged. Many people have gotten their PPP funding, or they've figured out at least how they're doing business differently. And maybe that's for the next month in Illinois. Who knows if they're ever going to get lifted, right? People in Illinois are like, can we ever leave our house? And then as we get introduced back into society, the way people are going to feel comfortable or how they're going to feel comfortable is a completely different conversation. So, we wanted to focus today on the growth mindset of the business. Where are we going and how are we going to get there? How do we take a step back now to strategy? And how are our strategies going to adjust going forward? Or not? Has our business really not been affected in the way that we thought it would be affected? Some people have had that experience. So I thought I would just kind of read a quick definition of like growth mindset and what it means, just to guide our discussion of like where we're going, and so we're all on the same page. And it really, a growth mindset is our belief. It's individuals who believe that our talents can be developed, right? Like through hard work, through good strategy, reflection, input of others. That means we have a growth mindset. We can take in what's going on in the world, and then we can adjust and change and move forward. A fixed mindset is we believe we can't change, others can't change, our society or our business can't change, because we're just so impacted by whatever. So saying, my business just can't recover because I do in-person entertainment and it's just completely, or videography. I'm a videographer and I do video shoots and I edit video shoots. And so because I do that, my business is tanked. That's a fixed mindset. A growth mindset says, okay, well, how can I pivot my video production company where I can still be editing videos, still be adding talent or using my talent to earn and make money, but without having to be recording things in person? I might have been actually Coach Melody that shared this example on a previous call about how someone completely pivoted and now they're actually helping to host online, sessions like this, recording it and editing it for people. And they don't step foot in a room with another person, but they're still able to earn and do things differently. So keeping that in mind and like what a growth mindset looks like, I was thinking we should launch off this discussion and talking about how has your own mind about your business changed? How has your own perspective about your business changed during this time? So what have you learned? What's maybe one or two things that have been your biggest lessons learned that's kind of adjusted the way that you look at your business or adjusted the way that you move forward? Does that make sense? And it might be something huge and it might be something small. I'll start while you guys think. I because we're a virtual work environment, I underestimated, well, I know I like being around people. In the beginning of all this, I thought, you know what, we're not affected. I mean, this is how we work all day, every day anyway. I really underestimated how important it is to get together with people on a regular basis. I think not being able to and not even having that option has showed me how important it is to be intentional about getting together. And that's just surprised me, because at the beginning, I just kind of thought, oh, we'll be totally fine. We got this. This is how we work all the time. I kind of forgot how valuable it is when, you know, my team and I are in the office at the same time, or we do a team meeting and we're in person, or we can go to a happy hour together, or I can go to lunch with our clients. You know, there's something that it's like, I just didn't realize how important that in-person interaction is. So that's been a huge lesson learned for me. And what I will do differently going forward is be intentional about those in-person meetings with our clients and with each other. We need to schedule them so that time doesn't get away. And I think we will be more likely to let those things slide and not do in person, because now we're in this cadence of doing everything digitally. We're going to have to be even more intentional about getting together in person. So that's my biggest, lesson learned and how I'm going to adjust going forward. Anybody else?
Yeah, I mean, I think of myself as it's not a difference, but I think of myself as being an introvert. When I went out on my own 2.5 years ago, 3 years ago, I intentionally tried to schedule lunch meetings, with other attorneys or friends once a week, and not being able to do that has really put a fine point on that for me. Mm-hmm. Society, these societies that shun outsiders, it's very detrimental to the shunned party's mental health, and that's it's one of the reasons why the current pandemic is so damaging to our well-being.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely.
I saw, others might have seen Tech Talk. It was on, a woman talked about having grit. And I don't know if anybody heard that, but that's the new buzzword, is grit. Regardless of how intelligent you are, what your degree is, what your scores were, at the end of the day, successful people have grit. And, I've seen some in our firm who, again, everybody has different circumstances. I don't know how many kids they have at home, they're taking care of their parents or what, but the couple of attorneys I've seen who just, didn't let anything stay in their way and still continue to plow ahead and try to do things a little differently, but still be able to succeed. So I see that. Case in point too is there's a couple organizations that I was going to have mixers with for the next couple months, and at least 2 or 3 said, let's put it on hold until we can face to face. And then one organization with me both said, let's plow ahead. And we did a mixer last week, and I was with 6 or 7 of our attorneys and 6 and 7 of their employees. And I had emails coming back from our attorneys saying that was excellent. And it was because both parties wanted to make it work. And I think that's one thing I've seen is you've seen some people that have really shined and have really plowed forward. And again, others, I'm not making excuses for others because they have some really good excuses, but I've seen that at least in our organization.
How did you do the mixer? Is that a Zoom thing?
Yep, we did. We use GoToMeeting, but they use Zoom, and we had 6 from our group, 6 or 7 from them. I facilitated on our side, they facilitated. So we made it a point before the meeting. This is going to be the order that we're going to ask these questions in so that everybody has an opportunity to speak on 2 or 3 different topics. So we really, we're pretty stringent facilitation. We made sure that people that are on there represented different areas. And I think it worked. I think because of the participants also spoke up even, and they added value. But obviously, as we all know, the most important thing of a mixer and meet and greets is the follow through to make sure that now we don't just have this mixer and then nothing happens.
Another thing too, for just interaction and engagement, if you're using Zoom, Zoom has a polling feature. So if you've got a lot of people on a call, you can use that polling feature, and GoToMeeting does as well, but you can use that to solicit people's input in a way that's more controlled and less chaotic. If you've got 20 people on the call that you kind of all want to be hearing the same thing, but you also want them to engage, the polling feature is really easy to set up and really easy to use. It's another one, like last week we talked about the breakout rooms. It's another thing that you have to kind of activate within your account on like the actual web application, like on the website. So that's a quick note too for people still using Zoom but wanting to interact. That polling feature is pretty nice if it's a bigger group.
Well, kind of piggyback off what Chris said, I think I also realized to have a lot more, and not that I didn't have empathy for my coworkers before, but just with all of this, it's easy to kind of be in your own head and realize what you're going through and what your family's going through during all of this and just kind of your day-to-day stressors. But, not everyone is as forthcoming about what they may be going through with this pandemic. But I just know personally in our team, everyone has had something that I would consider a crisis or major life event outside of it being a pandemic at some point during these 6 weeks that we've had kind of being sheltered in place. So just kind of realizing that having that mentality of everyone is going through this and everyone has their own way of going through this. I feel like it's kind of brought me a little closer to my team in a way that we may not have been as personal before and might have kept it more high level. But it's done that with clients as well. Like I think we said last week on the call, we've met everyone's pets and kind of gotten to see different, kind of peeled back the layer of everyone's professionalism. So I think that's kind of helped me kind of bring myself back down to earth when I realize everyone else has some sort of crisis in addition to what's going on right now.
Yeah, that's empathy. Yeah, thanks for sharing that. That's huge. Because I tend to think I'm an empathetic person by nature. But when I think about if I was on a video conference 4 months ago and there was a dog barking in the background or a kid making noises, I would have been pissed. Like, get that kid out of there. And now, like, what are you going to do? Like, we're all in the same situation. And so even though I have kids myself, it's definitely changed, how we view, I think, each other, and that empathy. Thanks for sharing that, Sarah, is really important. Anyone else? Anything you've learned and how you'll take that going forward?
The one thing that's really helped me is, and it goes kind of hand in hand with the growth mindset, is having an abundance mindset. And that's, reaching out to my wife's in the events industry, and obviously a lot of them are really hard hit right now, and just reaching out to them and, offering free consultations, look at their contracts. Should they keep the deposit or should they, let this one client go, and, kind of talking through that. And even if I don't charge them, or even if they don't come on as a paying client, it's offering those services and just having the mindset that the work is there, the work will be there. I'll be taken care of, I'll be fine, and helping where I can and going from there, I think has really helped connect with more people.
That's awesome, Mike. Thanks for sharing that. Abundance mentality, I would be curious how you guys feel about it, but I don't think I see it that often in our industry. And maybe that's like the competitive nature of lawyers. But the abundance, the idea of there's enough work to go around for all of us, and we don't need to be frantic about, capturing market share, or this is my lead versus your lead or whatever, is huge. And I think it's not that common in our industry from what I've seen, but it certainly creates a a lighter mind and lighter shoulders, right? When you believe there's enough work to go around, you don't have to fight or scrap for what's there. This ABA panel discussion we're doing tomorrow is all around business development during this time. And I'm coming at it from an organizational, like marketing and branding perspective. And sort of my section is called, how to still be normal during a new normal. Just don't be weird. I've been seeing all this really unique law firm advertising coming out that like we would never recommend for any of our clients, because it's frantic and it's not in your value system. Like if you don't have experience with bankruptcy and you don't even have bankruptcy listed on your website as a practice area, but then you put out a social media ad for bankruptcy during a pandemic and an economic downturn, people are smart people and they just roll their eyes and, it creates a negative, a tarnish on your brand. But that's a scarcity mentality and not an abundance mentality. That's saying, oh, I'm going to try to capitalize on this negative situation because I don't think there's going to be enough work for me. So it's different. If you can pivoting in your business and making a different strategic decision is totally different. It's all about that messaging. So that connects a lot to what I'm talking about tomorrow.
It's funny you mentioned that.
Weird. Go ahead, Randy.
It's funny. Thanks. It's funny you mentioned that, Jamie. I was just my dad lives over in Champaign-Urbana, and I think it was last night before I was talking to him, and apparently he didn't say what firm it was, but somebody in their TV market over there has been running some sort of ad which has a frantic air to it, but it's for attorneys. Hey, got all these bad things that are happening and we can help you with it. My dad was like, really? He didn't think it was terribly effective. My dad's not an attorney, but it certainly did not appeal to him when he was kind of shocked.
It's like the same thing could be handled in two different ways, right? So one of the examples I'm using is, have you guys gotten bombarded on social media by that Will and Trust company? I mean, they're all, go look them up. They're all over social media right now, Will and Trust, and they're getting all these negative comments. So there's pictures of these kids running around. It's not a particularly negative message, but it's basically saying without saying it, are you afraid you're going to die and lose your kids and you don't know where your kids are going to be taken care of? Hey, come pay us money to do this for you, right? That's how people are taking it. And people are commenting on social and saying, oh my gosh, way to capitalize on a really bad situation, hashtag lawyers, right? Then you've got a Marlar Law Partners, to Sarah Marlar's credit, that they're doing 100 wills for goodwill in their community, in which these people can't afford a lawyer to get a will and they are afraid. And the messaging is, hey, we just want to give back. We have capacity. We're not doing this to make money. We're doing this because we want to give back. And this is a way we can do that. So if you are afraid and you're concerned, we're here to help you and we're going to do it for free. Both offering wills, right? But in a completely different message, in a completely different way. And I think that's the difference, right? That's the difference. And the people getting turned off by, Randy's dad watching this ad, and now it's reinforcing his lawyers, right? Son's a lawyer, but lawyers, versus a different ad, different messaging could be taken a completely different way. Anybody else learnings that you'll apply?
Well, I think when you brought that up about Sarah, so many of these publications now are wanting those good stories. They're all popping up now. If it's the Business Journal, if it's BAMSL, if it's a Small Business Monthly, Construction News, they're all putting now sections about people helping people. So I'd encourage attorneys, if they're doing great work like that, to get some publicity out of it as well. And by sharing the story, it encourages others to do the same.
Yep.
Yeah, Marlar Law Partners has been in the news at least 2 times. I'm hoping to get 3 or 4 times before this coronavirus is over, but they've been picked up locally and it has been a little bit easier. I think people have been wanting to see a lot of these feel-good stories. So there is a real opportunity. I mean, reporters are literally asking for stories about how do we make this like front page news not so scary for people. So it's been very easy to get press releases out. I highly encourage people to send some out if you're doing any of that type of work.
Well, I think one of the components to like, you know, having a growth mindset is how do we learn from all of this and then adjust and move forward. And the real practical component is that business strategy. Like now is the time to pull out that strategic plan and try to say, does this all make sense? And, you know, I've been recommending that, you know, people don't make any big business decisions over the next 2 months, right? Meaning, if you have to make a big business decision because you lost half your revenue, like that's something else entirely. But I think most people are beyond that at this point. But don't make any big business decisions for the next 2 months. So you can kind of see we're going to have another shift and another new normal, right? So after things start opening up, offices are opening up, people are coming back in, courts are opening up, and we're going to see how things are going to shake out over the next couple months. And to reset goals right now would be, I think, a futile activity. You can forecast, but you just don't know the flow of work over the next couple of months. So, you know, don't reset goals. But I like this idea of a growth mindset because growth mindset is saying we care more about learning than we do about performance right now. So how can we set some goals about learning over the next 2 months and how our firm needs to adjust and grow and learn in our billing process to make it more efficient so we can, you know, really capitalize on the staff that we have, right? Or the capacity and time that we have. How can we take this season to assess our business infrastructure and our operations? How can we, you know, get a better policy going forward on what remote work environment looks like and make that available to more people because now we see that it can work. Like how do we set goals around learning and procedural change and technology change? And a growth mindset is saying, okay, in a business, we're gonna focus on learning more over the next 2 months than we are on actual performance. Meaning, if we don't have the billable hours, we don't have the billable hours, right? They're just not there. So we can't measure people on necessarily revenue and billed hours. And if the work is there, that's a completely different conversation. I'm talking about when the work is not there or the work looks different, how can we still keep our people engaged and also having a growth mindset and how they can learn and they can grow and keep moving forward. And I'm going to share a link with everybody out on our LinkedIn page it's a study on this growth mindset. And she's done a couple TED Talks, and this has the TED Talk linked there and a little bit about her study that she did. And she talks about, you know, growth mindset in a personal setting, growth mindset in businesses and organizations, and how we can encourage others in our firm to be thinking that way too. So how can we help our office managers also have a growth mindset and not say, well, this is the way we've always done it. Right now, we've had to completely adjust and change, but the worst thing we could do is go back to doing things the way that we always did them before. So how do we encourage our people to grow during this time, encourage them to educate during this time, to come up with ideas to do things better or differently? And go read this article because I think it's really good. And there's some, you know, attributes that she lists out that were prevalent in her study of those that had a growth mindset. And I think a lot of leaders probably have these attributes already, but how can we also identify the people in our organization that also have these? It's resilience, ambition, optimism, creativity, perseverance, determination, and grit. There's that word grit, in collaboration. And those people, we need those people during this time more than ever. So how can we engage the people that already have a growth mindset in leading meetings for our firm, in leading discussions, you know, in helping to come up with a new process? So I just thought I would share that article with everyone as a resource, and we'll post it out on LinkedIn too, because I think it's got some good tidbits in there and some links to some other resources too, to share with our teams even. So Did anybody else have anything else they wanted to share before we wrap up with some more quips, memes, funny things? Kim Kern was sad she couldn't be on today, but she actually emailed me something to share. That's kind of a cute little meme.
I have a quick question. What are you guys doing about returning to work with your people?
What are you doing about returning to work with people?
Like your offices, are you back? Are you putting a plan in place?
Chris, what's Carmody doing?
Yeah, we are. They're working on a plan. When it happens, it'll most likely be a rotation process where they'll have an A and B group. A group comes in certain days, B's come in a second. They're also working with individuals to assess their needs. So some people, doesn't make sense that they have to go back right away. And then some, for personal reasons, may have reasons why they need to stay home a little bit longer. But right now, it'll probably be next month. And most likely it'll be a rotation process where we have group A and group B, where only half the group's in half the time and the other half. So it gives the cleaning crew time to clean as well.
Yeah, I'm curious what legal back office's plan is too. I mean, it's kind of a weird space we're in right now.
You know, I think so many offices do have like a naturally socially distanced feel, because when you're in everyone's in their offices, right? It's the what happens in those shared spaces that becomes the concern, like the restrooms and the kitchens, and those are the bigger areas, because people can still kind of keep that distance for the most part, especially if they're not in cubicles right next to each other or bench seating or whatever. So I think that's the biggest concern. And also, I've been curious about and would love your input on the emotions behind going back to the office, because the logistics you could probably work out pretty easily. But what do you do with employees that are still fearful of coming back, and the empathy that goes along with that, especially the older generation that thinks they're that are more susceptible, or people with existing health issues that are more susceptible. Do you guys have any thoughts around that?
I know our employment lawyers are getting a lot of questions about it.
I bet. Because I think our clients I think have been very empathetic. They're naturally empathetic to the employees that don't want to come in. But some of them don't get it or don't understand it, and, I guess it's one of those things you just have to play it out and see how, like, time will tell.
Yeah, my team is split. I've got people who are like, when are we going back? What's the plan? We're tired of being at home. And then I've got people who are fearful of coming back. And then there's me sitting at, I don't know.
Yeah, I've got, a team member that's an older team member, and he reached out to me recently and just, just said, as much as I, want to, be involved, we have some in-person work that we do that's really hard to do remotely. It's like, I hope it's not too much, but I don't feel comfortable yet. And I'm like, yeah, I want you to feel comfortable. I would feel terrible if I was hard-nosed about someone being in the office and then they ended up getting sick and having a real issue, especially if they could work remotely.
Yeah, we're likewise split here, and we'll continue to be. We've sort of gone to that informal A/B shift, if you will, but we also have some people who are just not coming in and who are more fearful, maybe legitimately so. We unfortunately really don't know the answer to that yet, and you'll just kind of. But I think that's the way I think we're handling it, is just kind of taking it as it goes. And we'll see what happens in some of those those bridges we will have to cross at some point. Because as a practical matter, you can only support those people for so long.
Right.
And if you have a PPP loan, of course, you're not supposed to fire anybody prior to June 30th.
Right.
But I mean, you don't lose it entirely, but you would lose part of it potentially. So, no good answers.
Well, let's wrap things up here, and I just really have appreciated these calls every week. I hope you guys do as well. It's always good to just kind of talk, other people that are in the same situation and figure out what strategies you guys are applying. So I really just have enjoyed the collaboration in a different format too, not just a formal educational format with slides and a webinar. I'll share Kim's meme that she wanted to share with everyone.
Who wanted to share this meme with us?
Kim Kern.
Oh.
4 stages of quarantine. Using the Mona Lisa, which I thought was pretty funny.
Oh gosh.
I've been talking to several people about weight gain during this time. I was talking to a client this morning about how we're both glad that we're not bakers because, consuming all the cookies and muffins and cakes during this time. I was like, well, I'm consuming enough gravy and butter for everyone combined. So I thought that was funny. Does anybody else have anything?
Hey, I want to say this really quick, Jamie, guys, before I hop off.
Yeah.
I've been talking a lot about the COVID-15. You just talked about weight gain. Like this is I just was on Forbes and I just did a big post and people are like, wow, I actually created a signature talk about COVID-15 and how to combat it because with people not moving, not, stress eating, also just being at home and not doing enough activity. 15 pounds is the average weight that they're expected to gain. So, and it's hard for some people, some people are disciplined to get up and go work out and all that, but some people really do need help and just having bad habits don't help. So like you said, if you're baking or doing some things that are adding extra calories, yeah, not a good time right now. But yeah.
I don't know about you guys. I think the best video I've seen since going into quarantine is the guy that was videotaped and he seemed to be real. And they asked him, if you have to quarantine again, you have 2 choices. A, with your wife and your kids. And then before they could even say B, he said B.
B.
That was really B.
That was funny.
B. Yeah.
That's got to be the best one I've seen out there.
Well, my husband actually showed me that and he thought it was hilarious. I was like, okay, you guys got jokes, right? That was good.
Well, thank you all. We'll see you later. Have a great rest of the week.
Take care, everybody.
Thanks, Jamie.